Assalamu alaikum, I'm Yusuf, a recent graduate from culinary school, and I've also worked in a 5-star hotel under a head chef. And these days I spend my time teaching people how to cook online. This is a brand new series from Freshly Grounded where we take popular foods from around the world that might not necessarily be halal and we give them to you made halal. So we're kicking off this series with an absolute classic. Now, how many times as a child you were on a road trip and you pull up to a service station finally and you see that amazing sign, the big M, McDonald's. You pull up to the McDonald's drive-thru and you see that Big Mac. And unfortunately, it's that one thing that we've never been able to eat. And so I'm bringing that to you today, made halal. But before we get into this recipe, we have to look at what actually makes the Big Mac so special. So there's McDonald's around the corner. What we're gonna do is Uber Eats ourselves a Big Mac. We're gonna get the burger minus the meat so that we can have a look at the bun, the cheese, the lettuce, and just see how this thing is built and how we can recreate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Cool. So we have our Big Mac, classic burger. So we have obviously the seeded bun. We've got some pickles in there, some lettuce. And then the second layer, we have our American cheese. It's called a Big Mac, but is it really that big? It's kind of the size of a normal burger, to be honest. Even with the meat. That's what we're working with today. I'm just gonna take a little taste of the Big Mac sauce so I can make sure that we're... Yeah, it's just like a pickly kind of mayo, a little bit mustardy as well. But you know what? I think we can make it a bit special, definitely. So yeah, let's get right into it. Now the first thing that we need to look at with the Big Mac is what it's being presented in, the buns. So I've got some seeded buns here. What I'm going to do is use 3 pieces. So we have the top bun, the bottom bun, but I'm also using a third layer which makes the Big Mac, right? It's got to have that middle layer. What we're going to do is toast that in a dry pan. You can actually use a toaster if you want, but you can just heat up a pan or a griddle and toast the bun so that it's nice and crisp at the bottom. Next up, let's prep our veg. So what we have is our lettuce and our onion. With our lettuce, what I'm going to do is actually remove the top 2 layers of the lettuce itself. Why? Just because it's not that crunchy. We want crunchy lettuce. So you can put that to one side, throw it in a salad, do whatever you want with it. We just want that crunchy bit. So what I'm gonna do is take a couple layers off, give it a nice rinse, roll it up, and this is actually gonna help you a lot because if you were to just try and chop that lettuce as a big sort of leaf, it might be a bit difficult. So a little hack is you roll it up and we're just gonna slice it nice and fine and you have this perfect shredded lettuce. We're gonna put that to one side and move on to our onion. Now we're going to do our onion 2 ways. The first way I'm going to do it is once I've peeled it and halved it, I'm going to slice it nice and fine. This is going to add some really nice texture as it goes through our burger. And the second way we're going to prepare our onion is by finely chopping it. This is going to mix into our sauce, adding another layer of texture. We're using the same ingredient, doing it 2 ways. It's going to make it really special. So what I'm going to do is make some horizontal and some vertical cuts along our onion, just chopping it nice and fine and putting that to one side. Our last bit of prep is going to be our pickle. So we're going to do that 2 ways as well. One of the ways I'm going to do it is slice it nice and fine, cut it into strips and chop it up into small pieces. To be honest, if you don't want to faff around with that, do it however you want. It's totally up to you. The best way that I can think is by slicing it into strips and then chopping it nice and fine. And we're also going to cut some of the pickle into slices as well. Again, it's totally the way you want it to be. Make this your Big Mac. Okay, so now that all our veg prep is done, we're going to make our sauce. It's actually super simple. So the actual Big Mac sauce has quite a mayonnaise kind of mustardy sort of flavor. Personally, I think we can improve that a little bit. And so I'm going to make the slight change. Rather than using Dijon mustard, I'm going to be using Sriracha sauce. So we're going to add in our chopped onion and our pickle into a bowl. I'm also going to add in a couple tablespoons of pickle juice. This might sound a bit gross, but trust me, it's going to add that level of sort of acidity that you need in this. Then we're going to go ahead and add in our mayo and just a little bit of sriracha. To be honest, this is another thing that you can play around with. If you want it spicier or milder, you can always switch the sriracha with ketchup if you want it sweeter. It's totally up to you. And I'm going to mix that together and it's got that really nice vibrant color. We're going to leave that to one side and start on the final piece. You see, we've basically done the whole burger anyway. Most of it is just a little bit of simple prep and then it's just our burgers to finish right at the end. Only a simple amount and we're gonna make something so special. What I'm gonna do is use beef mince. Now, often when you go to the butcher and you see this sort of big tray of vague mince and it's kind of really fatty and you use that to try and make burgers, it might not always end in the way that you want it to, and that's because the fat ratio is really awful. You'll start with a burger that's huge and it will shrink to a size that's that small. So we're using beef mince because it's really lean and it has a lower fat percentage. This means you're getting more meat and less fat in your pan. So really try and get beef mince if it's accessible to you. What we're gonna do, and as you can see with the way I'm shaping it, I'm making them into balls and I'm not overly shaping them. It still has that original shape of the mince sort of working its way through. What I don't want is that you sort of really squeeze it together and compact it and put all this kind of, effort into it, you're just gonna end up with a really dense burger by the end of it. We want this burger to have bite. We want it to have nice texture. So what we're gonna do is just shape it really lightly into a ball. We're not gonna season it with salt at this point. We want to preserve that natural flavor, and by adding salt, you're gonna draw out some of the moisture from that, and you really just want to leave that pure meat just the way it was. Now, when we're talking about the perfect burger, we have to have a smoking pan. What we're gonna do is put your hob on the highest possible heat and put a pan, I'm using a griddle here, onto that heat until it's smoking. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to the burger. You can add it to the pan if you want. In my opinion, if you're using a griddle pan and you cover it with oil, it's just going to level the pan out and you're not gonna get those marks that you want. So if you want to get the maximum impact, I would personally oil the ball of meat rather than the pan itself. So once your pan is smoking hot, I mean so hot to the point that your fire alarm is like cheering you on, we're gonna take our patties and place them into our pan. You should hear that really nice sear.
Yeah?
Yep. Now believe it or not, you don't need fancy equipment to make smash burgers. All I'm using is a rolling pin and a spatula. I'm placing the spatula onto my burger and I'm gonna press it down with real force to get that smashed kind of effect on it. And don't worry if you don't make it perfect the first time, you can always go around and press it to make it nice and even. Once both of your patties are in the pan and they're getting that nice color underneath it, we're going to season it. But wait, make sure you do not touch that burger. Why is that? Because the second the patty hits that pan, it's going to stick to it. And what you need to do is allow it to naturally release itself, allowing that fat to render out and so that it releases itself naturally. If you try and touch it, your burger's gonna fall apart. You need to leave it and let it do its thing. Don't worry about it, it'll be okay. Okay, so now we can look at the seasoning. I'm literally gonna use two things, salt and pepper. I know some of you are probably looking at me now like, rah, he's not using any spices, but when you have something as pure and simple as a burger, you don't wanna overcomplicate it. We wanna get that nice, natural, smoky flavor. Adding in too many spices at this point is just gonna ruin it. So I'm gonna season it with salt and pepper, but what I'm gonna do is season it from a height. The issue is, if you season it up close, you're only getting patches of that burger. You season it from a height, you're covering a nice, even spread. How many times have you bitten into something and it just tastes so heavily of seasoning in one area and then so light in the other? If you wanna get that nice, even spread, we're gonna season it from a height. It's gonna give you a nice, gentle sort of covering of the burger itself, and it's just gonna be seasoned so much more evenly. Now you'll know when your burger's ready to flip. Why? Because you'll start to see the crust forming on the outside of it, and at that point you can put your spatula underneath it and get ready to flip it. If there is some resistance with your burger, don't flip it. When it naturally releases itself, then you can go ahead and give it a flip on the other side. You won't need to cook it for as long, just another 2 minutes or so, and it should be absolutely perfect. You're gonna take it off and let it rest on the side. And then to serve it all up, we're going classic. We're gonna have the bottom layer topped with our beautiful sauce that we made, adding on top our shredded lettuce and onions. And once you put your patty on top, we're gonna top with some cheese, but we're not using regular cheese. No, we're gonna make this special. We're gonna use some spiced cheddar. This is something that you can find in most of your supermarkets. It's very affordable, but it just adds so much of a punch that regular cheese just doesn't have. And we're gonna add a slice of that on top. Do it the way you want. If you want more sauce, add more sauce. If you want more cheese, it's totally up to you. Make it something that's truly special. And we're gonna finish it off with our pickles right at the top, and let's cut it in half to give you that perfect cross section. Oh my God, this is not stopping. I don't even know what to say. It's huge. I don't even know how we're gonna. Bismillah. Wow, that was a mouthful. You see, you can really appreciate the layers of flavor that we tried to do there. So you appreciate that having the griddle on such a high smoke created that really smoky flavor in the meat, and then having that spicy cheese on top created that spice, and having the pickles and that tangy sauce cuts through everything. You can only appreciate that when it's in layers like that. And then you have the crunchy lettuce and onions. It's all just texture, flavor. It's just amazing, to be honest, if I do say so myself.